turned your volume up. This is an audio-first experience. Put on your headphones, close your eyes, and listen carefully. I leave alone in a small, renovated house at the end of a dead-end street. It is the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever happens. The houses are spaced far apart, hidden behind thick rows of old pine trees. I work from home, so I get almost everything delivered. Groceries, clothes, electronics. It all comes in cardboard boxes left on my front porch. You get used to the delivery drivers. They usually just drop the box, ring the bell, and walk away before you even open the door. It is a completely normal, boring routine. But yesterday afternoon, things felt slightly off. It was a Tuesday. The air outside was humid and sticky, the kind of weather that makes you want to stay inside with the air conditioning running. Around 3 o'clock, I heard the heavy thud of a package hitting the wooden porch. I did not hear a car engine or footsteps walking away. That was the first small thing that made me pause. Usually, you hear the rumble of a delivery truck idling in the driveway. I waited about 2 minutes, then unlocked the heavy deadbolt and opened the front door. The porch was empty. A single, small brown box sat right in the middle of the welcome mat. I picked it up, expecting to see a label from a major shipping company. There was no label. There was no return address. The only thing on the top of the box was a piece of yellow-lined notebook paper, folded in half and stuck down with a piece of clear tape. I pulled the tape off and unfolded the paper. Written in thick black marker were just 7 words. See you at 2:14 a.m. My first reaction was just confusion. I looked out toward the street, but the road was completely empty. The pine trees stood perfectly still in the heavy air. I figured it was just a sick joke. Maybe a disgruntled courier was mad about the long driveway. Maybe it was a prank by some neighborhood teenagers who were bored during summer break. It felt mean, but it did not feel dangerous yet. I brought the box inside, tossed the note into the kitchen trash can, and sliced the tape on the package. Inside the box was nothing but an old, heavy iron key. It looked like it belonged to an ancient skeleton lock. It was covered in rust and smelled strongly of dirt and old copper. I did not own any doors that used a key like that. I laughed a little bit to shake off the weird feeling in my stomach. I set the key on the kitchen counter, went back to my desk, and tried to forget about it. I told myself it was just a stupid trick. But as the afternoon turned into evening, the house felt unusually quiet. The silence seemed heavier than normal. By 11 o'clock at night, the uneasy feeling had grown into a knot in my stomach. I checked the locks on the front door, the back door, and all the windows twice. Everything was tightly shut. I went to bed, leaving the hallway light on. I kept my phone right next to my pillow. For hours, I just stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift as cars occasionally passed by the main road far away. Every tiny sound made me freeze. A floorboard creaking, the wind hitting the glass, everything felt amplified. I finally managed to drift into a light, uneasy sleep. I woke up suddenly. My body was shaking violently. The first thing I noticed was the absolute biting cold. When I breathed out, a thick cloud of white vapor appeared in front of my face. The air in my bedroom felt like the inside of a commercial freezer. It was so cold that my skin stung. I grabbed my phone to check the time. The screen illuminated the dark room with a harsh white glare. The digital clock read exactly 2:14 a.m. A loud, sharp beep echoed from the hallway. It was the sound my smart thermostat makes when someone manually changes the settings. I opened the smart home app on my phone with trembling fingers. The app showed that the house temperature had been set to 32 degrees. I watched the screen in horror as the target temperature kept moving down, clicking lower and lower on its own. Then the smart speaker on my nightstand clicked on. A low, static hiss filled the bedroom. I thought it was a software glitch. I reached out to unplug it, but then a sound came through the speaker that made my blood run completely cold. It was the sound of wet, heavy breathing. It was not a recording. The sound had a rhythmic, scraping quality to it, like someone inhaling through a dry throat. The audio feed was coming from another device in the house. I checked my phone screen again. The app indicated that the master bedroom speaker was currently playing a live audio stream from the speaker located in the attic. The attic hatch was located right in the ceiling of my hallway, just 10 feet outside my bedroom door. Someone was up there. They were sitting right above me in the dark, breathing into the microphone, watching the time change. I sat frozen in my bed, too terrified to move a muscle. The heavy breathing from the speaker filled the freezing room. I needed to get out of the house immediately. I threw off my blankets, stood up on the icy hardwood floor, and crept toward the bedroom door. My heart was pounding so hard against my ribs that it felt painful. I reached out and gently turned the doorknob. I pulled the door open just an inch to look out into the hallway. The hallway light that I had left on was completely smashed. Shards of glass covered the floor, glinting in the pale moonlight coming through the living room window. Right beneath the broken bulb, the wooden attic hatch was wide open. The wooden ladder had been lowered all the way to the floor. I looked down at the base of the ladder, and my breath caught in my throat. Sitting neatly on the bottom step was a pair of dirty, mud-covered boots. Beside the boots was a pile of my own personal belongings. There were framed photos taken from my living room shelves. There was a stack of my old mail, and there was the yellow piece of notebook paper from the trash can. But that was not the part that made my mind completely break. The smart speaker in my room suddenly let out a loud burst of static, and a voice spoke through it. The voice was low, raspy, and completely calm. "You think I just got here tonight," the speaker muttered. I stared at the open attic hatch. I realized something that made my stomach turn over. The dust on the wooden ladder steps was completely wiped away. There were deep scuff marks on the wood that looked weeks old. There were empty food wrappers and plastic water bottles scattered around the base of the ladder that did not belong to me. The delivery driver from this afternoon had not left that note as a warning for a future attack. He was not the person in my house. The delivery driver had found something out. He had seen something through the windows, or he had figured out what was happening. The note was not a threat from a killer. It was a warning from a stranger who knew that someone had been living above my head for months, waiting for the perfect moment to come down. A sudden, violent crash echoed from the attic opening. The heavy footsteps started moving down the wooden ladder. They were fast, reckless, and loud. I did not think. I just ran. I slammed my bedroom door shut and turned the little lock on the knob, knowing it would not hold for more than a second. I threw my weight against the heavy wooden dresser, pushing it across the floor. The wood screamed against the floorboards as I forced it in front of the door. Bam! The door shook violently as something heavy smashed against the outside. The wood groaned. Another strike hit the center panel, cracking the paint. "Let me in," a voice whispered from the other side. It sounded frantic now, stripped of all calmness. It sounded hungry. I turned toward my bedroom window. I grabbed the metal latches and threw them up, shoving the glass frame upward with all my strength. The cold night air rushed into the room, but the screen was still in place. I grabbed a heavy ceramic lamp from my nightstand and smashed it through the mesh screen, tearing it open. Bam! The bedroom door gave way with a loud snap. The dresser slid forward a few inches as a pale, filthy hand forced its way through the cracked gap in the door. The fingers scratched wildly at the air, trying to reach the back of the dresser to push it away. The person on the other side was incredibly thin, with long, unkempt hair and skin that looked gray in the dark. I scrambled onto the windowsill, cutting my palm on a jagged piece of the broken screen. I did not care about the pain. I looked down at the ground. It was a 10-foot drop into the sharp bushes below. Behind me, the dresser was shoved aside with a massive grunt. The door swung wide open. I caught a glimpse of a tall, emaciated figure lunging across the dark room toward me. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and completely vacant. I pushed myself off the ledge and fell into the dark. I hit the ground hard, rolling into the dirt and the sharp branches of the bushes. The impact knocked the wind out of my lungs, leaving me gasping in the grass. I forced myself to stand up, ignoring the sharp pain in my ankle, and ran down the driveway toward the main road. I did not look back until I reached the safety of a neighbor's porch a quarter-mile away, where I frantically pounded on their door until they let me in and called the police. The police arrived 20 minutes later, with sirens blaring and flashlights cutting through the dark trees. They searched my house from top to bottom, but the man was already gone. He had vanished into the woods behind the property before the cruisers even arrived. When the detectives took me back inside the next day to collect my things. They showed me what they found in the attic. There was a small, makeshift mattress made of stolen blankets from my basement. There were dozens of photos of me sleeping, taken from the dark hallway through the crack of my bedroom door. But the detail that keeps me awake at night is the iron key. The police found it sitting on the attic floor. They tested it on every lock in the house, but it did not fit any of them. The detective told me they think the key belongs to the front door of another house in the area. I moved across the country into a brightly lit apartment building with 24-hour security. I never go into rooms without checking the ceilings. I never buy things online anymore. But 3 days ago, I woke up in my new apartment and went into the kitchen to make coffee. Sitting right in the middle of my kitchen counter was a brand new, small brown box. There was no shipping label. There was just a piece of yellow-lined paper